Hey guys, the Germaniac back again, bringing you another video. Now, today we have a pretty spicy article. This one is pretty interesting. I've broken it down myself, so we'll go through it, we'll check it out. It has to do with a secret plan against, yeah, that's the title, against Germany. Now, I've used Google Translate on this just to, obviously, one, because I can't speak German, but I had a friend of mine essentially post this. So the article is by correctiv, and it says nobody should know about this meeting. High-ranking AfD politicians, neo-Nazis, and financially strong entrepreneurs met in a hotel in Potsdam in November. They planned nothing less than the expulsion of millions of people from Germany. So I'll break down the article in dot points. It is pretty interesting. So essentially, the prologue sets the scene for a clandestine meeting at the Landhaus Adlon involving right-wing ideologists, the AfD representatives, and financially influential supporters. Main goal of the gathering is to discuss and plan the expulsion of millions of people from Germany based on racist criteria, regardless of citizenship. Very interesting. The meeting, meant to remain secret, involves communication through letters, which were leaked to correctiv, an investigative journalism platform. Reporters were able to reconstruct the meeting by obtaining copies of letters, taking pictures, and filming undercover. Participants include key members like Roland Hartwig, right-hand man to party leader Alice Weidel, and Garrett Hugh, a member of the Bundestag. The Murid clan, neo-Nazis, environmental organizations, and other individuals with various backgrounds are also present. So, Act 1, Scene 1 describes the setting of a country hotel where the meeting takes place. Attendees arriving in a white SUV with right-wing music blaring are welcomed to a white-covered table. Invitations mention an exclusive network and a recommended minimum donation of 5,000 euros. So obviously this is kind of like a right-wing event to essentially get donations and figure out what the grand strategy of the right wing will be in Germany. So a lot of people claim that the right wing of Germany, or like the AfD, that they are using their democratic, how shall we say, coverings as like a disguise for obviously more, fascist or racist tendencies, which we'll continue to read the article and we'll see what it says. So, Act 1, Scene 2 delves into the master plan presented by right-wing extremist Mon Selner. So Mon Selner, he led Generation Identity? He led essentially a identitarian movement in Austria, married a alt-right YouTuber, Brittany Pettibone, in 2019, and essentially I remember he got banned from the UK and he was detained because he wanted to essentially speak on Speaker's Corner or something like that. But essentially, he's more of like an ethno-nationalist, to be honest, or how they would want to sell themselves is restrictive immigrationist, I would say, which, depending on your argument, you could say it's based on racist tendencies, which or ethnic tendencies, which, to be honest, currently the left wing has no counter to the kind of tribal and, I would say, naturalistic, you know, tendencies that people have. Like if you see a country's immigration, like the country's ethnicity or background change to being, well, you lose essentially a large part of your identity because you are accepting so many immigrants, or the immigrants are out breeding the natives, then it does embitter the society to a degree. And the left wing really has no solution to this. In fact, their solution is to have a more diverse society so you essentially get used to it. So they are very counter 2 points. You're either one or the other. Or not essentially that, but you could say that, in my opinion, if the left wing were to do it slower, have a slower kind of rollout of immigration, then assimilation works better. But because we are getting sold this idea of multiculturalism, for example, me, right? I can go to Germany, I can live there, I can get all the free Bürgergeld that I want. But when it comes down to it, I mean, there is really no pressure for me to learn the language. Everyone can get by with English, and essentially I can just like sit there and get free money. So it is a bit ridiculous that people are able to do that as and what is the argument to make me assimilate, for example? No, I would want to assimilate if I lived there, but what is the argument to assimilate? We're a multicultural society, you know? I don't have to do anything. I don't have to assimilate. I don't have to speak the language. In fact, you assimilate to me. So it is a very precarious position. And because the idea of multiculturalism, you have two societies simply going at once. Well, you bring in more people, now it's two, three, four, and then people can get pitted against each other doing that. So anyway, we'll continue. And so, Act 1, Scene 2 delves into the master plan presented by Selner, focusing on the concept of remigration. The plan targets asylum seekers, foreigners, and the right to stay, and non-assimilated citizens. The article emphasizes that this plan is an attack on the Constitution of the Federal Republic. So essentially, Selner has been trying to figure out, well, how do we shift the demographic tide that we're faced against? We've accepted so many people, the ethnic, well, the actual, you should say, ethnic Germans aren't having kids, and they will be outbred. Their culture changed, and I don't think it's about a change of culture dramatically, but it's about a change of culture too quickly. I think that's actually the point which pisses people off, or which would piss the right wing off. Act 1, Scene 3 reveals that there is no fundamental criticism of the master plan among participants. So they all, in the background, kind of are agreeing, yeah, we want Germany to remain ethnically German, with some expressing doubts about the feasibility. And so the plan would have some doubt that they can even be pulled off. AFD members, including Garrett Hugh, expressed support for the concept of remigration. So essentially, even getting uh, current citizens, well, that comes up later. I've already checked out the article degree, but getting people like the refugees or asylum seekers remigrated back to their homelands. Act 1, Scene 4 introduces the concept of a model state. Now, this part I was a bit confused about. In North Africa, and discusses the idea of ethnic choice, where people with a migration background will primarily choose migration-friendly parties. I was confused about that, so we'll skip over it. Act 2, Scene 1 shifts to the practical details and next steps, with Gernot Murig suggesting the formation of a panel of experts to work out the racist plan in legal guise, so to figure out how to actually pull this off. Hans-Georg Maassen, the former head of the Protection of the Constitution, is mentioned as a potential member. So even someone who is the former head of the Protection of the Constitution is thinking, maybe this kind of immigration isn't too good. Act 2, Scene 2 focuses on building a metapolitical, pre-political, a metapolit, a metapolitic, pre-political power to change the climate of opinion and weaken democracy. Money is discussed for money is discussed for influencer projects, propaganda, action moves, and university projects. So to essentially change the idea of how people view the right wing. Currently, the right wing in Germany is viewed as the great evil. Understandably, people can view it as like anything right wing, nationalistic, patriotic. Ooh, it's evil. We can't be having that. But Germans with their autism, they manage to execute a lot of these ideas pretty proficiently. So they keep swinging. They swing one way and then they swing back the other. So if any of this gets pulled off, I mean, I would say it's believable. So Act 2, Scene 3 reveals that some participants are already thinking about their own plan and the formation of a new party. So perhaps they're thinking of the formation of a new party, maybe to be even more right wing than the AFD. One strategy, so that it looks like the AD is actually pushed towards the center. That's one strategy they could use. With Ulrich Vosgerau butchered it, suggesting a model letter to question the legality of elections. So they might be questioning the legality of elections later. Act 3, Scene 1, emphasizes the importance of money in the execution of their plans, with Gernot Morig mentioning potential donors and suggesting the formation of an unregistered association. Act 3, Scene 2 involves AFD politician Ulrich Sigmund openly advertising for donations for the upcoming elections. They want to build up their treasury. Act 3, Scene 3 features Roland Hartwig, right hand to Alice Weidel, discussing plans for an agency for right wing influences co financed by the AFD. Hartwig expresses the openness of the AFD Federal Executive Board to such ideas. Very clever. I don't really know why they haven't done this already, honestly. Like, if you think about how the youth adopts ideas, it is a lot of them can be propagandized using TikTok, YouTube. I would say that's almost like the main hunting ground. And if you can add a little comedic twist to it, then you can really, would I say, twist the knife? You can really garner a lot of support by using kind of a cloak of irony to essentially shadow your real beliefs. So if they use democracy as a cloak, and then they try and present themselves as like civic nationalists, when in reality they're secretly ethno nationalists, because obviously ethno nationalists would never be able to run, especially in Germany. Then then you would have to use civic nationalism as a vehicle to bring across the actual ethno nationalism kind of ideas. The epilogue summarizes the revelations, including the exposure of a conspiratorial network, a master plan for the expulsion of citizens, potential donors from the bourgeois, a constitutional lawyer proposing legal methods to question elections, and an AFD parliamentary group leader seeking funds outside the party, and a hotel owner potentially benefiting financially from the meeting. Now, some parts that I didn't mention, one of the ideas that they want to do, they want to try and use remigration. So it would be uh, people who aren't assimilated, people who have a migrant background, obviously refugees and asylum seekers. They would be the easiest ones to get rid of, obviously. But one that was really curious was the fact that they said that, maybe if you have a citizenship, that, maybe that's not good enough. You can be kicked out even if you have a citizenship and you haven't assimilated. So that was truly the interesting one. So I wonder how they would pull that off. Now they talk about the 1950s, so anything past the 1950s, you would you would not be considered, oh, your family's from somewhere else. You don't have true heritage to Germany. After the 1950s, especially the 60s, that's when more immigrants from a different background came in. Turkish, for example, um, they would want to essentially try and get rid of them too. But that would be legally very, very difficult, especially on the world stage. So to actually execute that, they would need to be able to propagandize the youth, garner support, create more influences within the space to then try and move that kind of window where the right wing looks far right to make the right wing look more like center right. So that would be the strategy. Now, the left wing strategy, what the hell is it? What is the counter? Because they're not really doing anything other than the same old playbook. Call it racist, try and ban it, just say they're hateful. But obviously, there is a market for this, and the left wing are not doing well to counter it. So, in my opinion, if I were to consult the left wing, it would obviously be one, use more influences within the space, try and cause more debate within the space. The thing is, they try and just outright ban them, instantly just call them Nazis. which a lot of people, if they don't see an antidote within the current political climate, then they do go more extreme. So the left wing has to figure out how to actually counter it if they are looking to keep their multicultural society afloat. Now they could do this through an even greater importation of Germans of foreigners into the country. So you would bring in even more foreigners, essentially, and try and just out outvote these ethnic Germans who are obviously pissed off, and essentially try and take more of the pool of the vote, which is a which is obviously one strategy, not something that I'd be for. I'm more of a immigration. I honestly think of like a more immigration restricted, like having more strict immigration. But that's because mainly I think that we're getting to a stage where I think honestly, like robotics, things like that should be able to cover a lot of these jobs. And just as an example, some people are saying it's not there yet. I feel like we need to almost create pressure. So, as an example, this is a basic example. I could be completely wrong. Tell me to go jump off a bridge. But just one example would be like when they essentially got rid of slaves, all of a sudden there was more pressure to create farming equipment. And, one of the reasons people say the Roman Empire didn't industrialize is because they were using slave labor and there's no real demand. So if you don't have the demand there, Germany's desperate for more of these people, it has a lot of engineers. So maybe people can build, essentially use robotics to fill that gap. But it is a very interesting article. I mean, it is a long one, and as you can see, I was using Google Translate to essentially go over it, but it is a interesting article. We'll see how the AFD can play this off, and I know they're trying to get them banned right now, but even if they get them banned, the will to have a more Germany is still there, and they say that because of part of basic law, if you have German citizenship, you're as German as the next guy. But honestly, I've got like three citizenships. I mean, like just in comparison, just from like a realistic standpoint, if Germany comes under attack, let's say hypothetically from one of its neighbors, and the country rallies every German to come fight for it, I mean, like, would I fight for it? Let's say just in this example, I wouldn't want to fight for it. I've got the choice not to. I can just piss off to the other two countries. So I don't have as much. So you could potentially say that someone in my scenario could have as much, could have less loyalty in that scenario, which just makes sense. It's like, well, I don't want to fight. You can force every other citizen to fight, but because of my situation and my background, um, I can tell you to piss off. Like, what are you going to do about it? You can't really do anything. But it was an extremely interesting article. I'll try and leave it in the description. For some reason, YouTube doesn't let me leave articles in the description for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's like my account needs to be older. But anyway, if you enjoyed the article, you know, and my commentary on it, leave a like, subscribe. I'm going to be doing more of these every day. But yeah, this was a spicy one. Very interesting. Anyway, peace out.